So I have to say that I don't want to be humble sometimes. So sometimes I cannot, yeah,
It's inappropriate to be humble.
yeah. I don't want to be humble today. So today's topic, I have to say that if we can call what is our area of expertise of Robert, Professor Calvert, and me, is us. It's this topic. So this topic is something that we really care as we were exploring a lot in the last years. Actually, recently, University of Barcelona called how many authors? How many authors are in that book? Like 20?
Something like 2 dozen.
Like 2 dozens of scholars around the world to discuss this topic. The book was published this year, and two of the authors are Professor Gaffer and myself. So yeah, we're really this book. If you want, we can send this PDF to you. It's a book recently, it's in Spanish, published by University of Barcelona, about this topic that some scholars call informality, and they call 20 authors around the world, and two of them were many universities around the world, and two of them were in Wentworth, Professor Calver and I, and it was really fun to actually it was a conference, and we were discussing the topic, and then they select some of them to publish the book. And I hope that someday they can send us the physical book, Robert.
Yeah.
And we can do a panel here at Wentworth.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do a book talk.
We should do a book talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna start today the opposite. Many of the things that I will discuss today comes from two sources. The first one is my practice. Before them coming to Wentworth, I was working in an office in an architectural firm of my own in Venezuela, and I spent 12 years working in a usually called informal settlement called Petare, which is the largest dense self-produced environment, the largest informal city in the world, the densest one, and the second largest in the world is that place. I was working there. Actually, I used to live in this house for 1 year, and then I worked every day in the morning. I moved to that. I was living in a more fancy area, and I moved there to work every year. So this is my first source. And I had an office that was a methodology that I used to call the Robin Hood technique. So I usually have clients in the bank area. I'm doing bank agencies and with the most important banks of the country. And I use some of the profits of this to do projects in this area. But what is fun is when I applied to my doctoral program at Harvard, I got into the program because of this project, not because of the project that gave me money. So the second part, I went to Harvard and did my doctoral program in working in informal settlements. The doctoral thesis is called Spatial Opportunities for Self-Produced Environments. So we'll talk about here from these two perspectives. So, and the most important part is that the biggest statement to explore this area is that cities are places for opportunities. So we come to cities because this is where we can realize or connect our skills with the opportunities that the city offers. That's a reason because cities exist. This is not my quote. This is from Juan Nuño. He said that the cities exist because we can be more free. We can exercise our freedom in cities because we have more opportunities to engage with our skills in cities. So at the end, Franco Micucci said that informal settlements, so this image tries to represent windows to opportunities, and people, Franco Micucci say that these areas are not places of poverty. The first thing that we see here is poverty. People who have no money to build their homes. He said that it's the opposite. They are places of richness. Because we have poor people, for sure, but they have the capacity that outside of the system, without having support from the bank system, without any loan, without any mortgage. They are able to build their own homes because the city is providing them money to build that. So the richness of the city create this situation. And this is really connected to the reading of today, when we're coming here, that the capitalist city creates the amount of resources where money circulates that invites people who are commonly out of the laws of the city to come to the city because they are out of the space, out of the system. They are building this new type of environment that belongs to the capital of the city, but goes in some ways away of the law. So this is exactly what we're discussing today. They are moving outside of these that supposedly define the city, which is the legal system that provides the cities. I usually have this discussion about, I would love to compare. I'm gonna go very quick here because our presentations are really long today. But here you have, I usually compare Petare, which is this type of environment, with Positano. Positano is a city in Italy where that used to be the same thing that Petare 2 centuries ago. So 2 centuries ago, only 200 years, Positano transformed from something that we call underdeveloped as areas, the houses are like shacks without sheathing, no public space, no infrastructure, no water collection. And in 200 years, they transformed from here to one of the most fanciest cities in the Tuscan area, where people spend thousands of dollars every weekend being at a hotel, looking at the sea and enjoying the most fancy and best beautiful food of the sea. So my point is that in the 20th century, we have Petare. It's a hills, plenty of houses built by the people out of the law. That was Positano that in the 9th century. So actually I say 200, but from 9th century to 20th century, Petare transformed into Positano. My question for you is, did you get to compare? Can you get that thing? My question for you is, from 20 to 9 is 11 centuries. In 11 centuries, that was Positano, similar to Petare, and is now these very fancy areas. Do you believe that in one of the, not now, but in 20 centuries or 11 centuries ago, you believe that Petare will be like Positano or not? What I'm trying to say is that thanks to the richness of the city and the amount of money who are circulating, Petare, Positano transformed into what it is today. Do you believe that this city will be like this one in 10 centuries or no? Do you think it will happen the same with Petare in 10th century? They will be as rich as Positano is in today or not? Raise your hand if you think the answer is yes. Yeah, Isaac, Jake. Okay, raise your hand if you believe that the answer is no. Petare will never be like Positano. Raise your hand. Okay, I want the why for a second, Aaron. Or no, you. Why do you think it's impossible? Petare will be poor forever.
Be poor forever. I just don't think it's gonna get the investment that the other place got.
They won't have the investment forever. Why?
I think it depends on people's opinion of the place. Like people go to Italy because of the view, but it won't go. I don't know what that place looks like. I'm looking at one.
What if I tell you that you have the best views of the most beautiful biodiversity in Caracas from Petare?
Well, then now my opinion changes.
Okay.
From one instance, I look and I go, I prefer the place on the right more than.
Yeah, I know it's much more beautiful. I agree. Who believes that Petare will never be like Positano? Never. Will be bad forever. Will never have it will be disinvested forever. Who believes that? Can you raise your hand, Aaron? Why?
Well, I just don't think that two places are gonna have the same outcome necessarily, just because they had a similar original form, I guess. And I don't know what caused also, I don't know, to turn into what it is compared to other funds, so that's why.
Yeah, but do you think could be some investment in Petare in the future?
I think that could be possible, but my knowledge of like how they usually handle these kinds of settlements, that they end up just bulldozing and building up.
Yeah, okay, so this idea that, so the question is, they have here at the end two options. And these are the theory of development summarized in these slides, in this option. One is the modernizing perspective, that you believe that every place that is traditional will transform into something more modern, big through time. So it's a question of time, that through investment, places will be modernized. This is theory one. There are people that are modern, that have a modernizing spirit. They believe that bad areas will be good because the capitalists, the system, have money flows around the city and they will be modernized. We don't have to, we just want to wait. The second theory is the structuralists that say there are areas that will be backward forever, with backwardness forever, and there are people that will be advanced forever. Obviously, theories are meant to be theoretical. In practice, they won't be like that. Do you remember the quote by Yogi Berra? There is a moment here.
Oh,
In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is.
that's
This
good.
is Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
In theory, Yogi Berra was a catcher from the New York Yankees. He said, in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is.
That's good.
So when saying that these two theories are bad, but what we're trying to say here that there are certain moments of backwardness, certain places that we call informal, or certain areas that are in, I don't know, red line district, certain places that are not that good, that because of how the system works and how they connect to they have access, remember last week, to the resources that have the city, they will never have the opportunity to succeed. The system is designed for them to be out of the system and in backward space. And that's and this is what we call self-produced environment. These areas are designed by people, but at the end they are labeled as informal because they are out of the law of the legal system of the city. So and what I'm trying to explore, how we can create the spatial opportunities to these type of settlements in order for them to be more related or connected to the opportunities that the city supposedly provides for everybody. So, so in this, what I'm trying to define is what human capability means, and I'm gonna skip all of these to summarize one quote by Martha Nussbaum. Martha Nussbaum is a scholar from the University of Chicago. She said that she defined human capability in that way. Your capacities, it doesn't depend on your skills, but in the way your skills are connected to the system. So you are capable, not because you are talent, you have talents, not because you have a great capacity to be a good designer. You will succeed not because your skills, but because of the way you can connect your skills to the system. Can you get that? So in the future, you can have a friend who has less talent than you as a designer, but he has a good friend in the government, and he will be a better job or a better project. This is what she's saying. So we have to understand that human capabilities is not about the skills of people, but how the skills of the people are connected to the system. So, and this is why this is, do you think it's important for self-produced environment, for informal settlements? Basically, because what is happening with these areas, like Petare, is there are areas that are disconnected to the resources, the opportunities that the city has. A person, and this is basically what is called the cycle of poverty. If you are a baby and you're born and you wake up and open your eyes, and you are in the middle of East Village, you will succeed. Or if you are in Boston. If you open your eyes and you are in the middle of Mumbai or Caracas, you will fail, period. So if I can summarize the cycle of poverty, so they say that a baby born and in a place where they have a particular neighborhood, and then they have a particular form of education that will have a particular form of job that have babies that are in this part of the neighborhood. So there is a cycle that they never end forever. Do you agree with that? Come on, you have to say no because they will not have discussion. Who's in disagreement with that? So again, if you're born in Caracas, if you're born and you're in Caracas, you will have particular education, and then you will have a job, and your kids will born in Caracas, and then you will end a cycle of poverty forever. Because you are not really connected. If you are in the agreement, come on, let's imagine that you agree with that. Do you think this is correct? No. How we break that cycle? That is the question. How we break that cycle? And how the urban environment helps or not to break that cycle? Which is called the cycle of poverty. This is not me, okay? There are a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Ethan.
I think the cycle is that way because globalization has like occurred in such a way that it's only really targeting like centers of industry, and it like all of the means, like the collective means of the world are all just being used to move goods and like valuable items and important people. And it kind of glosses over like all of the different people and cultures that could be being shared. And so I think that if like the world, I guess the world economy was focused a little bit more on the like transportation of culture and of people, then people would be able to like have an easier time going to different places of the world that have like things that they would like.
Robert, are you planning to talk about market value versus use value? You usually talk about that.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Is that this week or?
I don't know. I don't remember if this is
I
your
think
next.
it's in the future.
In the future, because
But it's
you will,
already been raised.
yeah, it will, yeah, but you will talk about that a lot in that lecture. So we're gonna keep that. So yeah, but in some ways we are the values of the system makes people to have particular cycles, and it's very difficult to move away for this cycle. So if you are in a city like Petare, and you see resources, opportunities from the distance in a window, and you cannot really access to them, it's very difficult for you to move away that side. So at the end is lack of access to opportunities that makes places like Kibera in Kenya, like Mumbai, Mendoza, this is Argentina, Netza, Ciudad, Mexico City, sorry, or Petare, this is like make people, poor people, like environment where people won't never have access. Remember last week to the opportunity that the city has, and they will be always in that cycle of poverty, and that's an issue that is commonly happening of where we call the global south. So in order to understand this situation, I'm gonna explain you very quick 3 claims that I was developing in my doctoral dissertation. This is not exactly my doctoral dissertation, just 3 claims that I think we have to rethink in order to find a way to break that cycle. I'm gonna start the first one. The first one is the notion of marginality, because these places are called usually informal settlements or marginal people. My first claim that these are myths. These are not really true. So if you see that many of the books that explore this area call this area slums, it's a very famous book, Mike Davis. It's called Planet of Slums. The claim of this book is basically this world is feeling of slumness because of the way of inequality that the global economy works.
And that used to be the reading for this week, was the article version of
Yeah.
Planet of Slums by Mike Davis.
Yeah.
It's a very good short piece. Before he wrote the book, he wrote an article And maybe I'll drop the link for that in the slides.
Or when you try to reimagine, just tell where I have to say that many scholars are still stuck in the idea of informality. So what is informality? Let me. I think before going to the slide, I can define informality.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. It's the sample that I usually do in this class. Imagine that I go to the quad because I cannot make a life with my salary as a professor. I have to find a way to pay the tuition of my kids. So one day I decided to go to the quad and I put a table and I start selling apples.
You better sell them for $1,000 each, my friend.
Yeah.
Tuition is expensive.
Yeah. Well, you have to sell a lot of apples. Do you think that is correct or not? Can a professor start selling apples in the middle of the quad? What will happen? What will happen is that the police of Wendell will come to me and will tell me, Professor, what you are doing. So you don't have permission to sell apples here. So what you're doing? So this is not a place to sell apples. If you want to sell apples, you need to have a permission. You need to have a contract. You need to have certain
Health department certification.
so a certification, and it will happen in Betty Hall. So that is informality. I'm doing something that is out of the current legal system. Are you getting that? Okay, wait. So I think we are grown-ups here. How old are you? Are you older than 18 years old?
Yes.
Okay, I can
We're 21, 22.
So, yeah, okay. So imagine that I am a professor here, and I go to my table. Instead of selling apples, I sell cocaine. Oh,
Shocking.
oh. That is illegal.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. That is illegal. Can you see the difference between informal and illegal? So if I sell apples, well, the police of Wentworth will come here and will talk with me. Professor, stop doing that. But if I sell cocaine, they will call the police and we will go to jail, which is different. Can you see the difference? That helped me to understand that there are levels of formality, informality. Actually, Edgar Page defined that you have from formal to informal, which is completely different than illegal. There are a range of options. Because sometimes you can have something that is formal, but it's not recorded in the system. So, for example, so or you can have something that I can do something that is formal, but I didn't report that to the IRS. It's not informal, but I'm not reporting that. That is different than informal. Are you following me? So there are different levels of informal and informality. What is happening with these questions is that be careful, because what has happened in the world several times is that systems are treating this like a legal thing. So if I don't have the money, or I don't have the connection to have a mortgage, and I go to the city and I start building my home, I would say that this is informal, but it's not illegal. Huh? I'm not something that is illegal. I'm not selling drugs. I'm just building a house. But the system what does is to label informal, because it's out of the law, label that as illegal and criminalizing them. So the word informality is being criminalized because it's outside of the current legal system. And I'm emphasizing the word current because sometimes the laws change. And sometimes you find something that was illegal, that it was not in the laws in the current legal regulatory framework today, that will be part of the regulatory framework later. So in conclusion, informality is something that is outside the current regulatory framework, but is doing something that is acceptable in the current regulatory framework. So this is to explain that at the end, this is still good. Do you have time for that?
This is really hard to follow.
So do you have me to explain? I need like 5. Can I borrow 5 minutes of your time?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's imagine that this guy is Isaac. Okay? And Isaac has,
You can't use the name of someone who's in the room.
why can Isaac? I can have your permission.
Can we?
Okay,
Okay, we can,
Okay.
we'll allow it.
Isaac, he lives in Puerto Rico. And he owns this plantation of cane, okay?
Okay.
Cane, sorry, sugar cane.
Oh,
Sugar cane, sorry.
yes.
No, sorry. That can happen as well, but in this case, sugar cane, okay?
Okay.
Did you watch the Bad Bunny halftime show?
Yeah.
Okay, that guy, okay? The guy have a plantation, sugar cane in Puerto Rico, okay?
Actually, he has a plot. He doesn't have slaves. Isaac doesn't have slaves. He's working the land.
He's working the line.
Yeah.
Imagine that
So-
in this time he works the line with your brother, okay?
So we call it a plot, not a plantation.
Okay, imagine, and he lives in Puerto Rico, okay? And he sells this every box of sugar cane, he sells that at $10. I'm gonna simplify the numbers, okay? Okay. Because sugar is not processed in Puerto Rico, but in Boston, I don't know if you know that, but if you can Google the very, very famous Massachusetts Puerto Rico network of sugar that happened in the 18th century. There was many sugar plantations, many sugar factories here and candy factories here, where the plantations came from Puerto Rico. This happened in the 18th century. Actually, many of the revenue that the Boston had in the 18th and 19th century was because of the plantation that happened in Puerto Rico and were shipped to Boston to produce sugar. That happened. Okay, I'm talking about the real story. Okay, what happened in Boston? So then this place is moved because factories happen in Boston and in Puerto Rico. They moved to Boston, and I have to say that the cheap is cost $10. So let me start here, $10 plus $10. And then theory of capitalism, Marx, like Karl Marx, you need 4 things to produce something. You need the materials, the sugar, you need tools, another 10. You need labors, I'm just simplifying the numbers, 10. And the capitalist guy produces profit, 10. And so in order to produce sugar, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $60. So the cost of the sugar is $60 for each box of sugar cane. Are you following me? Because the sugar is produced in Boston, not in Puerto Rico. Okay. Oh, but Isaac, he wants to come on, a little sugar for his coffee. So the sugar is shipped back to Isaac in Puerto Rico, another $10 for the ship. So how much he has to pay for the sugar? 70. How much he's producing?
$80 because he has to, the shop owner has to make a profit. when he
Okay,
sells
yeah,
it.
let's say you're right. $80 because of the profit of the homeowner. How much he has? $10. This is what is called the cycle of poverty. This is not the cycle of poverty. The deterioration cycle of the theory of dependency. Isaac, it means Puerto Rico, will depend forever in the revenues that is produced. Sorry, it's the opposite. Boston will depend forever in the sugar cane, and the other will depend forever by the sugar produced by Boston. So that creates a deterioration cycle that is forever. I have to say, I don't want to go further, but this is sugar. If he want to have candy, again, 60 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's 90, plus shipping is 100, plus 10, 110 for the candy. You still have 10. So it's forever. You following me? If you have sand, you produce glass, you have to pay more. If you have gas, you have a screen. And if you have a screen, you have to pay for iPhones. Every time, actually, that is how the capitalism works. So it works in a way that you add value by changing products into something better. And then you add value and you have more money because of it. So you don't earn money because you have sugar cane, you earn money because you produce candy. So what is happening in the history of the world is that many countries, like the ones in Latin America, have relegated or they were assigned to be the providers of commodities to the world, not produced factories, not produced products. And for that reason, they are relegated to be poor forever. Are you following me how the system, how we believe the system works? Let's move forward. So imagine that this guy goes very well and he has labor and he can buy, I don't know, a saver. So how much you say this guy who works for him could receive in that system? Very bad salary. The salary will be very bad because the only, so come on, what is the way that Isaac has to succeed? Imagine that you're in this situation, Isaac. So you are, how you can succeed if you are having $10 and then you have to pay 110. What else? What you can do? And you have certain workers for you. Yeah, exactly. You have to be lower raters. Thank you. Great. What happened with this guy have lower raters? They have two options in the world. He can stay or he can go. So probably we have one of the reasons because we have massive migration from the south to the north. Probably we have the reason because ICE is so part of jobs now. Because the system is designed for them to be poor. And the only way they have to succeed, they don't want this, they don't want to have this revenue, they want to be here. So I want to be here, that's the reason because I'm here. I prefer to be here and have the money to pay 60. I don't want to be the money to have 10. So the system is designed for people moving from the global south to the north global. And that's the reason we have this massive migration of people from many parts of the world here. So it's not that they are here because they are lazy, guys. I believe, that they are here or we are here. Not because we are lazy, but because the system is designed us to be poor. The second option is you are earning, so you are very bad salary because of this system. You cannot migrate to outside, you have to stay. So do you have money to buy a house? No. So what happened? We were talking about the whole class. They build their own house. So the system is designed to produce what we call informality. The system is designed for us for people to build their own houses because they don't have the money to be connected to the system because they're having very poor salary. Probably Isaac will have the money to have it, but his laborers, his workers, impossible. It was so fast. It was 8 minutes. Is that okay?
That was the best version of this I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
That was great.
Thank you. Did you get the point? So what I want to
So this is the operating system.
this is the operating system.
Yeah.
This is the operating system, how it works, and how that produces. So this diagram we're trying to explain is that issue that produce informality, and we call them marginals. Are they marginals? In some ways they are. But at the same time, they are at the core of the system.
Yeah.
So people who build their houses in Petare or in Mumbai, they're not really outside of the system. They are at the core of the system. They are supporting the system. They are in the center. They are not marginals at all. It's not a peripheral attitude. It's something that are in the system, in the middle of the system. That's the reason because I have to argue that one of the reasons because I argue that marginality is not true. Second one, I argue that informality is incorrect. And I can give you one example. I had the opportunity to research this house. It's house called, no, it's a Casa El Mocho. El Mocho is a guy who buys the house. So I was tracking with him, his photos, every process that he used to build his home. And we classify these the money he expends in the progressive build of this house into something that was formal, because sometimes he buys something formal to build his home. So he went to Home Depot, the equivalent to Home Depot in Caracas, and he buys something, he paid taxes. So he bought rebars for the columns, for in a formal way. So part of the house were formal, part of the house were informal. He met with people and he asked people to come. He buy some beers, prepare some empanadas, and they build a house for between guys. So this is informal. And sometimes they did some illegal things, I would say, okay? So I would track all of the construction of the house, classifying them by if they are formal, unreported, unrecorded, or informal, progressively across 30 years, 20 years he spent to build this house. So, and these are basically the collection of that information. And then we classify all the information to demonstrate that I know, come on, I missed one diagram that will come later. That some of the fragments were formal and informal. The second claim is, I'm trying to say that is, sorry, I messed up a little bit. So is that this house is not completely formal and not completely informal, as I said before. There are some mixed parts that are informal, some of them that are formal. So at the end, this binary of formality and informality is an oversimplification. And to explain, I was saying before, here's the diagram, that I would classify the amount of materials, tools, labors, and capitals, and we systematize them, and we concluded after this analysis that this house was 11% formal, 37% unrecorded, and 12% informal, and 27% illegal. So we cannot say that this house in Petare was informal or formal. Some of them, regards were formal. The labor of the columns were informal. So when we label that as informal, we oversimplify, and we ended up neglecting the way he's really El Mocho connected to the system. And this comes to the typical 5 principles of how the world defines informality. So how the world defines informal. This is a typical report by the Organizational Development by the Uninhabited. There are 5 criteria that supposedly we use to define what place is an slum, an informal area. Whatever. If the structure have durability, if the water, if it has water. Third, if it has sanitary conditions. 4, if the space is overcrowded, and finally, if they have legality. What I did with El Bocho is try to understand how these 5 categories evolved across the years, across the history. So if you see here, this is the growth of informal settlement in case of Caracas, and these are the four out of 5 categories. So durable homes, they were not durables, and they were more permanent later. And these are, for example, sufficient legal area. They were really overcrowded, and they started growing to incremental houses. Now they are not really overcrowded. My conclusion here is between 1942 and 2012, at least 4 of these 5 categories were really improving across the history. These guys, because they were little by little connected to the system of the city, to the revenues of the city, they were improving little by little. And you can see some of the houses that were really, really good. Some of the houses are very, very good shape. So my conclusion here is that these categories are not helping at all. Because, why? Because even if they are, even if they are better water supply, the houses are more durable. Even if the houses are better sanitary conditions, even if the houses are more living area, less overcrowded, the problems of living there persist. So my point is that this classification is working within the operating system. That classified the home in relation to the way the home is similar to my home, but not trying to understand the real problems of living in this home.
What's the real problem?
What do you think is the real problem? So imagine that you are living here. Can you see this area? I have my answer, okay? My house is in a better shape, beautiful. It's just not made by recycled materials. It's made by real construction systems. I already have water. I have more space because I grow and have the space for my kids. and sanitation is better. Everything is improved. Is it good to live there? No. Why? What's the problem? Yeah.
Like it's the same like diagram that you showed earlier that like the system is just constructed in a way to like to use these people.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, but I agree. But imagine that you are living here. Do you want to live there?
Yes.
You say no.
If I'm a laborer for Isaac, I should be so lucky.
Yeah. So what do you think is the big issues of living there? What are the big benefit? The big benefit is the sense of community. Everybody's really close to each other because they help each other to build their home. The sense of community is amazing. What is the big problem? The big problem is what I called, actually, this is a diagram to explain that they are growing progressively to improve. The big problem, and you can see this image, this is 1942, and this is 2000, and you can see how this was like this one before. Okay, so you can see probably the answer to my question. Can you analyze this image? So look at this image. So you have reinforced concrete beams. You have AC. So if you have money to pay an AC, that's because you are good. So the house is in a good shape. What is missing here? And you realize that. So you should be skilled to do analysis. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I was gonna say the first sign is like the networks between each of the networks, I guess the roadways, they're not clear, they're not accessible, and in this case there's stairs and it's probably confusing, and I don't know what that is that a hose? I don't know if there's drainage problems or
Yeah, and when let me celebrate your answer. That's the answer. But also I have to say that you can see also these kids let's include public space in the network.
Yeah.
So the network that surrounds the home is not really working. So we are evaluating slums through 5 categories regarding the unit of the home, but not how the system works for that unit. And I have to say that the United Nations is still evaluating the slums in that way. So this is what I call system. Thank you, exactly. We call that network. So this is probably working, but layouts, mobility, utilities, and amenities are not really working. Yeah. Yeah. So there are many books that explain the needs of improving the network in order to improve the city. So it's not about the house, it's not about the people, it's about the system serve the people to succeed. And my final claim is that urban policies have been misguided. Why? Because they were following that pattern, that we are trying to solve the issue from the perspective of the unit and not from the perspective of the system or the network that support the system. So if you evaluate, I was working with the history of Caracas since that is something that for me was really, really interesting, that I evaluated examples from the far right dictatorship in the 50s. These are the projects for the far right's dictatorship in the 50s. And these are the projects from the far left projects in this century. So this is and this is Chavez, this is Marcos Pérez Jiménez, 2 different dictators, one from the right and one from the left, and they were doing the same shit. It's not about the ideology, it's about the way they are operating the same system, working with housing units instead of systems. And so they are doing points of house, points of healthcare system, points of public space, but know how they operate as a system to improve access. So this is the reason, because I said it's not important to name the stars of the point as the space within them. If we start understanding how things work together, probably we will improve. And this is my last slide, Robert. As I was doing an exercise, and I worked out with your university, with MIT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these are 10 points of 10 points of public space with the same size, like the size of a corridor, and that was implemented by the government. So This is what was implemented by the government. And this is idea participatory design proposal. And then I did another example, putting them according to our government programs or university grid and testing in different ways. And I realized that with the same amount of investment, you can serve more or less people. If you think a little bit not about the design of the point, but about how this point connects with the system. So if you change your mind and understand that the problem is not the amount of things that you build, but how these things are related to the system, you can do a better job.
When we get to Studio 7, is that something you're gonna ask all of us to do?
Yes, that's a good one. Are you doing that in Spain as well? Yes, next semester, and that will be my last comment. Next semester, we'll be working in the University of New Hampshire with the Abenaki tribes of Indigenous New Hampshire Collaborative Collective. We will be trying to understand not what you build, but how what you build connect with the networks of these particular environments. Try to think urbanism in a different way or architecture in a different way. So it's not that important what you build, but how that thing you build connect with everything. And that's probably the reason, because we were asking during your analysis. I'm trying my best to finish with the analysis every time. So in your analysis, not to analyze a thing, but how the thing relates to whatever surrounds that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're saying that next semester for studios that are not going overseas are working in the University of New Hampshire?
Yes.
Are we visiting that site?
Yeah. Durham. We're going to be Durham. We're going in Durham with those who are working here. I'm gonna give you the room.
Well, no, I have a question. So are you saying, what's the relationship between this network effects that you're talking about and the operating system?
Yeah. So so probably I can connect with what Saskia say. I said that last week. So remember that I said you that the city is an opportunity for agglomeration economies. So you can connect your skills and connect with the opportunities of money in the capitalist system. But at the same time, this is completely unequal. You have areas that are more connected than others. So the system is designed in a way that you produce areas that are less connected than others. And there are areas that will be verbally monopolized and will have more access to the revenues of the city than others. It's not really free market.
So the spatial networks are a way of connecting to opportunities.
Yes.
So if I'm a college student studying architecture in Ames, Iowa, they have got a very good architecture program, Ames, Iowa. Or I get accepted. Let's say I'm a high school senior. I applied to 2 schools. One's in Ames, Iowa, very good school. One's in Boston. Why choose Boston? Well, the opportunities, especially the program in Boston has a co-op program.
And you have more offices that can hire you.
Right.
And more network with other scholars. Yeah, for sure.
So the A student in Ames, Iowa is going to struggle when compared with the B student in Boston who's going to be connected with this network.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Do you think that is correct? I think that's correct. It is.
That resonates with me because I was accepted to more than one school and I chose Wentworth because exactly for these reasons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's with me? Were you accepted to more than one school? Why'd you choose Wentworth? For that reason? Plus the co-op.
Being in Boston and being a co-op in Boston,
Yeah.
it's more rewarding than being in Iowa.
And Iowa doesn't even have a co-op program. If Iowa would get a co-op program, then during the co-op semester, those students could compete with Wentworth students who work in Boston.
And Taylor, this is one of the reasons because cities works. But not for everybody. That's the main issue.
Oh, I should start.
Okay, it's your time, yeah.
Okay. Wow. God, I love this class. So before we get into before we get into my lecture, just a public service announcement about the analysis assignment this coming week. Thank you, everyone, for doing just the analysis, the visual analysis this week. You will see, we're going to release grades today. You will see, the good news is you can all do much better. We expect you to do, you're going to do much better. We know you're going to do better than you did this past week. Bad news is you didn't do so well. Most of you didn't do so well this week. But the good news is we know you're going to do so much better, and it's going to really serve your needs well to really get these skills down. Just a reminder, historically, a 4-credit course assumes that you're doing 8 hours, 4 hours in class, nominal, it's not actual 4 hours, but it's more or less 4 hours. And the expectation is that you're spending 8 hours outside of class doing the reading, discussion work, and the analysis. It appears, and that's to get an A, it appears that many of you are doing not just half of those 8 hours, not just a quarter of those 8 hours. A lot of the work appears to be, the analysis work in particular, seems to be dashed off in an hour or so. That's not going to work. That's just not going to work. We're telling you that through the grades you're getting. This is not working. And now I'm telling you, this is not going to work. This is not working. It's not going to work. The exception to this is some of you, and this has been true every semester that we've done this, and I've been doing this particular exercise since 2006. This makes it year 20 of the analysis exercise. Every year, students find new methods for doing what appears to be 8 hours of work. They make it appear to be happening. It appears to be 8 hours of work. It's a very high quality outcome, but they're using tricks to do it in less time. And is that okay? Is that cheating? Do I have to set a timer and make sure I blew my butt in the chair for 6 hours to do the analysis? Well, step one, yes, do that, please. But we encourage you to use tricks. Ask Shailene when she gets back how she does this magic selection tool in Photoshop. Some of your classmates are using the iPad and they're blowing it up and they're using the stylus of their pen rather than the mouse, which is very disconnected from reality. So there are tricks. The magnetic lasso tool, the magic wand, and especially every week, there are new tools that are AI driven that are going to help you achieve the precision that we need for these assignments to be able to do it in less than the 6 hours we expect you to spend. Any questions about that? So for this coming week, we want you to do the visual analysis and we want you to write the paragraph with the footnote. And this is something you appeared to be quite comfortable doing. You mastered it in history too. Thank you very much. Now just bring that mastery to bear in this exercise here. And I think it will help because a lot of you were not being thorough enough in your visual analysis. It helps when you need to write a paragraph, a 6-sentence paragraph, where the middle 4 sentences are expected to say this design decision that you're seeing here resulted in this user experience. We want at least 4 of those statements. That means there has to be at least 4 things pointed out in the visual analysis. So I think it will help you perform better in terms of that. You are encouraged, if you submit a substantially complete analysis assignment on Brightspace on time, that is 9 a.m. on Tuesday, you are encouraged to take the feedback you get during class on Tuesday and redo your analysis assignment. Please, take what you've learned during class on Tuesday and redo the assignment and resubmit it by 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Not many people have taken advantage of this offer. And that's out of the ordinary. So we want to make sure everyone realizes that that is an opportunity to do better. Also, we really appreciate it. Yes, Taylor.
Is that opportunity available every week or?
Every week, moving forward, that is an opportunity. Next question, can we go back to the ones we've already done and resubmit them? No, you cannot. Okay. We really appreciate it if the analysis that you do for Tuesday helps us figure stuff out. This is not an empty exercise. If you do a high line again next week, we're going to say, yeah, why? Hey, we're trying to figure stuff out here. This is a collective effort. We're trying to figure this out. We need your help to help us figure it out. Please help us figure it out. Take the questions that the most burning questions that are hanging over our head at the end of the lecture on Thursday. We need your help to figure this stuff out in the analysis work you do. So please do that. Is an architectural rendering appropriate evidence for us to base this assignment on? No, it is not. Architects make promises. Architects show us beautiful drawings that promise certain outcomes. We don't need that to learn from. We're trying to learn from the world itself, number one. We're trying to use our skills of architecture to unlock the secrets of how the world actually works in practice in response to effective architecture. So please look at real chunks of the world. That's the assignment update. Any questions about the assignment? If you have specific questions about your assignment, please talk to us after class or outside. Okay, so here's my greatly abbreviated slideshow because so much of this was taken care of. As I said, I've been teaching some version of this course for 20 years. For years and years and years, I struggled with this material of informality, of self-produced neighborhoods. And then for several years, when I became aware of this young scholar at Harvard, I started showing his research in these slides. But now I don't have to show the slides anymore because he's right here in the room with us. He teaches the course with me. So this made my job a lot easier. So the big picture, planetary urbanization. We've mentioned Malthus in the first lecture. So white English man, racist, says, hey, our ability to produce food in particular, but resources generally, expands arithmetically, but our population expands exponentially. What do you think his solution is? Let's sterilize non-white people. Let's kill poor people. Let's let poor people die. So that's not a very positive thing. But ever since then, we always refer to Malthus, and we always think, how many people think population is a serious problem moving forward? Really? Is that all? Okay. Well, I usually start with some very dramatic demonstration where human population grew, it stayed very steady for a long time, and then it grew like this. And then all of a sudden, more recently, and this is an expanded, you notice this is a 2,000-year period here, and this is a 2,000-year period here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2,000-year periods. The first 5 of those 2,000-year periods are here, and the last 2,000-year period is here. So It's dramatic, it's shocking. When your parents were born, there were about 3 billion humans, 3.5 billion humans. Now, how many are there? 8.2. Crazy. Doesn't it scare you? Is there anything we can do to reduce population that doesn't involve Malthus's racist euthanasia projects?
Well, countries start to have more developed economies, the population will change.
Exactly. This is what Mr. Stokes just referred to, is that as societies develop, this is their rate of reproduction. So this is the fertility rate. So it peaks here and then it goes down but this is an aggregate. 2 years ago, this is the slide we showed, and then last year we showed this slide because it's updated. So what's happening is the birth rate is changing in general, and we're actually going to have a negative birth rate. There are going to be more people dying than there are going to be born, and that's what results in this gradual decline. So somewhere around 2100, we're going to hit peak human at about 11 billion people. So do we have enough resources to feed the world at 11 billion? We absolutely have the ability to feed, house, clothe, educate. We can survive very handily with 11 billion people. We can thrive on a planet with 11 billion people, but not the way we're doing it. That's where architects come in. And is there anything we can do to peak at 10 or 9 instead of at 11? Yes, there is. Do architects have a job to do in that? Well, we had a thesis student here, and she decided to go to Ghana and build. Her thesis project was a school for girls, makerspace school for girls in Ghana. And the driving force behind motivating this was to empower girls and women to have autonomy, to have agency when it comes to their reproductive rights. And that's the answer to the question. Is there anything architects can do to affect this population curve? Yes. Go to Africa and help young women and girls develop their rights as citizens. They will gain control over their fertility, and this curve will change because the only region that is growing currently is Africa.
And access for health, life expectancy from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an access for wealth, income per person, $400,000, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only the UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic.
Whoa.
And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we
Third
stop a
world,
bit to look
first
at the world
world.
in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over. Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born.
He's
But the
Swedish.
differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. The United States was in the front. Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind. Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics.
Where's the third world?
Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa.
And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology, and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner.
Well, would you, yeah?
Awesome, right? So, is it okay to use the word third world? Yeah, as long as we say the historically third world. There was a thing called the third world. And by the way, it was a self-assertion. 1955 in Indonesia, a bunch of leaders of the former colonies got together. They were now independent countries. And they said, hey, we're not going to join the US and its capitalist system. We're not going to join the Soviet Union and China in the communist system. Stop competing for us. Just leave us alone. We are the non-aligned nations of, we're not the first world. We're not part of the second world. We are the third world, proudly so. And it was a very positive thing. And for a while after World War II, there was this thing called the third world. But now the third world has shifted geographically. The conditions of the third world now exist within a mile or two of the first world in every city of the world. Every city of the world has extreme wealth and extreme poverty. So it's not distributed according to nations and regions anymore. There is no more third world. You can say the global south, you can say the developing economies, but there's no more third world. Africa is the future. That is the only place that's grown. You want a career in architecture, by the time you graduate, the US will probably be in a deep, dark recession. Architecture is one of the first careers that gets hit in terms of hiring during recession. Mark Mulligan escaped to Japan. I escaped to Indonesia. Where are you going to escape to? I recommend Africa. It's the future. So we talked a lot in the first part about these immigrants. And these immigrants, like the $1 earner that's working on the sugar farm. That worker, if he saves up his dollars, he might have the opportunity to immigrate to a different country, maybe to Boston, where the costs are higher, but the opportunities are remarkable. So are immigrants lazy? Are immigrants sucking the life out of the US society? No, the evidence could not be clearer. The immigrants in the United States are the winners. They are the most gung-ho, the most talented, the sharpest members of their societies. They come to the United States because they're being pulled by opportunity. And man, are we lucky to have them. Italy is being sucked dry. Japan is collapsing. They don't have a working age population to support all the old parts. So those economies are facing collapse. The US is not, because it still pulls immigrants to the United States, and they are the biggest winners in the world. They are the sharpest people, and they are what drive the US economy and society to continue to be the most advanced society on the planet, despite everything. So that's the power of the pull. But you remember in history too, we talked about the power of the push in England when they pushed people off the land, the commons, and people got pushed into the cities. And it was a very negative situation. Imagine comparing Isaac's worker who's saving up his money and decides to immigrate to Boston versus, do you have a go bag? Did your family, like during COVID or something, did you ever put together a go bag so you could leave in a hurry if there was a disaster? You never did that? I thought that was a thing we did. Anyway, imagine in the middle of the night, your parents come into your room, you're in high school, and they say, okay, honey, time to get your go bag. We gotta go. No, sorry, leave that. You can't bring any of that. You can only bring what's in your go bag. And off you go. No matter how wealthy your family is, if you have to flee in the middle of the night because of natural disaster, man-made disaster, or warfare, you are instantaneously thrust into poverty. You can sew diamonds into the lining of your jacket, but you're vulnerable to crime, to theft. So even if you have diamonds sewn into your clothes, you will quickly become impoverished. This is the difference between push and pull. Being pulled into a new place, that's fantastic. Everybody wins. Being pushed into a place, everybody loses. And the world is filled with unintended refugees. It's never been a higher population than it is now. Thank you, Shireen Boulos Anderson, who has helped us understand this. Have you taken a class with Shireen? Yeah, so she's helped us all understand this in a way we otherwise wouldn't. So the world is filled with unintentionally displaced people within countries and beyond borders. And so that's one of the sources of housing scarcity. And we should be so lucky here in the United States. Oh, I think I have the wrong slideshow here. I have an updated slideshow to show you. Okay. So when I fled the recession after graduating from architecture school, I accepted a 3-month grant to go look at is cities and culture and social formations on the island of Java in the country of Indonesia. And I was interested in the historic heritage architecture, and I worked on restoring a palace. It was very interesting. But I needed a place to live, and I had a 3-month grant. I was really interested in stretching that 3-month grant as far as I could. I stretched it to 18 months, thank you very much, partly because I had very low housing costs, $13 a month. I lived in an informal settlement. There was a doctor who built a hospital for the poor people of the informal settlement. The doctor had a house in front of his house. They rented out rooms. It's basically a boarding house, but it was in the informal settlement. And so I wasn't there to study informal settlements, self-produced communities. I just happened to be living in one for 4 years. And wow, my neighbors taught me a lot about how this works. The scarcity of space for each house and the scarcity of space outside of those houses leads to a very creative approach to everything. So first of all, in the house, you live in your house, you raise your children in your house, you produce products in your house, and you sell those products out of the front of your house. So it's a mixed use, what we would call in the formal sense, a mixed use zone, but it happens out of necessity. Then the muddy alleys were paved by the neighborhood, working together. The government had a program where they would just dump paving stones and dump Portland cement and dump some rebar. And the community would use their own sweat equity. The men would mix the concrete, the women would carry the concrete, the grandmothers would make food for everybody, and it would be a party, it'd be a building party. And so they paved over these muddy alleys, they created drainage ditches underneath these precast concrete panels. There's a drainage ditch. Yes, rainwater and sewage, sorry about that. But it's so much better. It's a place for the few cars, yeah, motorbikes, bicycles, but it's where the children play. It's what the Dutch do is they also are one of the most highly densely populated society in the world. And so they have very dense places, so they need to mix uses. It's called a woonerf, we'll talk about it later, but that's basically what happens there. Let's go deeper into the operating system of this arrangement. It used to be that all the houses were built out of bamboo, and this was true in the cities and in the countryside. And when a young couple gets married, every family in the kampong is in charge of producing one of the components of the building. So a section of thatch for the roof, the main beam. If your family is known to be one of the wealthier families, you'll do a truss of the house. But basically, as part of the wedding ceremony, the grandmothers cook the food, the women cart the materials, the men assemble, and maybe there's one skilled carpenter. But basically, everyone knows how to do this because they do it every time someone gets married. And they produce their housing as a party. And it's affordable. When the Dutch colonialists came along and they outlawed these materials, all of a sudden you couldn't do this self-help situation anymore. And you had a problem. But it still happens to a certain extent. And people who have studied these neighborhoods have recognized that there's an economic symbiosis. There are food stalls, food sold out of the front of the house in these dense neighborhoods, which are adjacent to these high-rise glass office towers. The best thing to do at lunchtime, come down the elevator, leave the air-conditioned office tower, walk down the street, and go to your favorite lunch spot. The food is delicious. She produces the food out front. When she has to run to the market to get palm sugar. Her neighbors watch the kids. And so there's this symbiotic system internally to the compound that operates, that increases the well-being of everybody, including the cash economy. Their well-being largely depends on the communal cooperation that has organically emerged from the self-produced community. But the symbiosis goes on from there. It's symbiotic with the office culture, the formal economy of these cities benefit from very low cost, very high quality goods and services. When I was there doing graduate research, sometimes the officials working in the government offices, wearing their ties and working in the air-conditioned spaces, they actually live in these compounds because the conditions of the compound have improved over the years to the point where things have become quite acceptable. The last topic is in 2005, there was an earthquake and tsunami that wiped out this community in northern Sumatra. My first response is, well, my thing is Java, not Sumatra. And then I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh shit, this is my thing. And so I did what you do when you're an architect and you have skills and you have resources and you speak the language. You go there and spend as much time as you can. Then I come back, I ran a workshop for college students, 60, 65 students said, we want to go help you rebuild. And we quickly learned that there was no financial aid, no college credit. And if the university finds out that you traveled to Sumatra, they will expel you. So they were threatened with expulsion because the university didn't want to be liable for anything that might happen to the students. So the lawyers were interfering with our ability to go help in a crisis. 17 students bravely did it anyway. We spent the summer there. And basically, long story short, because we have to finish, we combined advanced systems of GPS satellite tracking. We trained the survivors of the tsunami to map out their land parcels because everything was lost. There was a 6-story wave that swept across their village and killed everybody except for the fishermen who were out at sea. And so those fishermen who survived, we put them to work. It was part of the primarily it was a mental health project to help them recover. But while we were at it, we mapped out and recovered all the parcel information. And then we continued from there. We said, let's say we wanted to widen the streets and install infrastructure. That means your original 2.5% of the land of the village, you're going to still have 2.5% of the land, but it's going to go from 52 square meters to 50 square meters. So you're going to have less land. And because there aren't many people who want to relocate to the village, and it's not okay in a Muslim society to live where you used to live with all this empty space. You need to have neighbors in this Muslim society, in their Muslim society. So they had to relocate where their house was. And so we developed a method for doing this. And when the international engineers say, you need to put armed guards to prevent people from rebuilding their houses because they don't know how to do it right. We said, oh yeah, who's going to rebuild their houses? We need 200,000 new houses and we need them now. I think the people should self-produce their houses. And so we made a comic book that taught people the proper formulation for concrete, rebar placement, how to make building blocks, and how to build in a way that matches seismic standards. And we were recognized, and that's it. Okay. We have 1 minute.
1 minute for the, what's the point in?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No.
2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes until the end of the class, guys. I know that it's been a lot. We have so much things to say.
This is what happens when you have two experts on the topic.
Yeah, that's all.
There's a lot to
that-
present.
That is an experts are so boring. Okay, the team. Aside.
Just come up, just come
Just
up.
come up, or you can stay there if you want, but you know, come on,
Just,
come on,
you
come on.
need to do it.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
partly my fault.
please. Any conclusion?
What questions would you, in your opinion, do your classmates need to figure out as part of the analysis process?
I think a lot of people originally were like skeptical on like the amount of authority that designers and architects have. But I mean, the example you just showed, even end result with like the school telling you not to do it, you still did it regardless. I think that's an important thing. Just like realize that you have the authority in some way. That's what I got.
Well, informality, because this was totally informal, we actually, it became infectious. So Oxfam started to just bring building materials to these villages and just drop it off from the truck. Total violation of the government's program. But the materials would just appear on the sites and people would rebuild with the materials that Oxfam dropped off illegally. So informality became a strategy for building. How about this? What if, because do we have a housing crisis in the United States? Is this a viable strategy for the US? Are there examples of informal construction in the United States that have been developed as a strategy for building housing where people need it the most? I don't know. But if there are, please help us. The tent camps? You mean in the state parks? That's what I'm doing today. I'm going off the Nickerson State Park. And sure. But I don't think Brewster, yeah. It's not really a solution to the housing crisis, but it is a way to get community. So there's that. But what about mobile homes? What about community land trusts? The community land trusts, how about tiny homes? A lot of towns have been developing these tiny home things. Are there any examples that we would like students to look at?
So what forms of, other forms of property we can have in addition to the typical ones?
Right. Private property is just ingrained in us as the basis for democracy, because that's what we say in the United States. But increasingly, it's looking like a barrier. Like if I were 21 years old, I'd be asking the question, am I ever going to afford a house? How old will I be when I afford a house? And what alternatives do you have in your future? Are there tricky ways to get past this insane supply and demand situation of US housing markets?
Okay, so this is what you have to answer for Tuesday.
Yeah.